opposite nation. You know what I mean? Because it was an army of young brothers. People may try to classify that as a gang to a degree, but we didn't necessarily call ourselves that. But the 5%ers, yes, there is a reputation in New York and New Jersey back then that we were a gang, and it's classified as a gang. But within the 5%ers, you had different crews, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like it was one universal big so-called gang. That's the farthest thing from the truth. Because some of your opposition was from your own brothers that was God, because the white man had got us caught up in, you know, in his certain tribes, you know what I mean? So I have a respect, and had a respect even then, for the Nation of Islam or any military. Even gangs and crews and mafia, black mafia, all of that, I respected all of that. Not only respected it, but looked up to it.
So when did the name change from 5%ers to the NGE, and why did it change?
That happened in the 90s. You know, that happened in the 90s. You know what happened? And a lot of brothers are coming now to the truth of that. And I guess they don't really have issues with speaking the truth of this. But what happened was, like I said, the guy was on the line earlier, but I said that the 5% nation was a bit more raw than what you would call a nation of gods and earth. The nation of gods and earth is more civilized than 5%ers were, to me. You know what I mean? And I say that because the 5% nation was very militant, very, you know, I don't know, you want to say anti-white, you can say that, but, you know, it was really pro-black. And so a lot of New York City, there was a reputation in New York City. So when the guards in the 80s, in 1987, came around, and the brothers was a little bit older at that time, the brothers wanted to reform the image, in a sense. You know what I mean? And they wanted to do two things. They wanted to reform the image and stop using the term 5%ers and kill two birds with one stone. Meaning that the brothers felt they were independent enough to get away from the shadow of the Nation of Islam. Because back then, theologically speaking, as far as the lessons of the language and speaking, you couldn't really distinguish one from the other. We sound just as much as a Muslim would sound. You know, we use it. Like the day people say Farad and Elijah, we be like, well, you know, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, you know, the gods would speak like that too. Like you see the old clips that I put up on the gods from the 60s, they say, yeah, in the honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, he the, I forgot what it says. What did it say, the Muslim? Muslim, something like that.
He said he's the only Muslim.
Yeah, the only Muslim. They, you know, you speak highly, you would distinguish and separate him, you know, in speaking of him. You know what I mean? You just put that extra oomph on it. But the guys to the day, you know what I mean? But that's how we were. We were very respectful in our language. But the gods, they wanted to distinguish us altogether from the Muslims, because what happened was, in the early 80s, see, what I had gotten out of the 83, Mr. Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam was around, but they wasn't to the point at which they got in 85 and 86. Because what happened in 85, Mr. Farrakhan came to New York, to Madison Square Garden, and, yo, God, that was such a significant monumental event. It was like a month build-up to that, where Mayor Cox was wilding out in the news every day, going back and forth with Minister Akbar Muhammad, Abdullah Muhammad, and them. They back and forth on TV, basically wrangling about Farrakhan coming to New York. So every black person that had any knowledge, which is damn near all the people in New York City, was aware that Mr. Farrakhan was coming. So it was like, Farrakhan coming. And Mr. Farrakhan came, and sure enough, I was there, God. I was in Madison Square Garden. It was October 7, 1985, that everybody went to Madison Square Garden. Those who couldn't get in the garden had to go into the Forum, which is across the street. And there was so many guards there. That was the first time I saw so many guards in my life. You know what I mean? And it was guards from all walks of life, and we all were together in Madison Square Garden. Now, after that, you know, it was like 50,000 people or something, you know, with the Tukabon. Mr. Farrakhan, a lot of people started joining the mob, even guards. There was one mob that was in New Jersey that was just full of guards, you know what I mean? So a lot of the guards, the lines started getting blurred, meaning that a lot of guards was in the mob, and a lot of guards was like that. You know, that was the 80s. So I think the brothers, you know, and this is also key, in '85, after Farrakhan spoke, New York City got flooded with crack. You know, with crack cocaine, and that's what it was on. And y'all still there?
Peace.
Okay, and I just gonna be honest, guys. I just like
He's gone.
a lot of the guys got involved with crack. You know what I mean? It's just the truth. You know, but that's just a New York City thing.
That's an actual fact, God.
Right. If you're young and black, it was unavoidable. It just happened to be that the majority of young black people in New York and New Jersey that was above and beyond and kind of hip or cool happened to be 5%ers. So that was the joint. We didn't have Bloods and Crips. The 5%ers involved all of the gang. So anybody that was cool, Islam was just on the rise. Everybody had a Muslim name, yada yada, et cetera, or God. So a lot of brothers got involved in that. And being that you was God, you could speak the language that you was about looking right. You know what I mean? And you was about, you know, the gold chain, all that. You know, looking good. And it got also the cars, and the Jettas, all that, the Audis, all of that. So a lot of guys got involved in that, and that's when you got the speed team and the law team. Now the original law team is from Medina. The original law team was out of Medina. It's not connected to the law team that started in Atlanta, but the law team from Medina, that's what they did, God. They was crack dealers. The Supreme team and the law team. And both of them squad from Italy. The Supreme team came out of the Oasis of the desert, and, you know, the law team came out of, you know, Medina, Brooklyn. The Supreme team out of Queens. So,
let me ask you a question, though, God. How can a God call another man a Bill Power if he doing the same thing that Bill Power doing? And his activity.
But, see, God, that was a long time ago, though. See, everybody was young. This was sort of new for our generation.
No, I mean today. I know God's. Oh well, that's activity.
He the Bill Power because he don't have knowledge of self. The man could.
Hold on. You're telling me that I knowledge 120. I converse this shit back and forth. So because I knowledge 120, and the dude next door, he ain't knowledge 120, but I'm involved in devilishment and he's not. I'm the God and he's a Bill Power because he ain't knowledge 120?
Well, God, you got to show and prove your capacity and mentally born the supreme being. You know, what you talking about, you're talking about basically two different things. You know what I mean? First of all, the God ain't even around to be quoting no lessons anyway. He show and prove 120. You know what I'm saying? We ain't here to just be reciting and parroting no lessons. What's the use in that? You got to make it a reality. 120 is real. It's a living, you know, when you renew your history, it's something that you striving towards or something that you vision and mentally and born it. Make it a reality. The lessons is just words on paper.
God, I know who knowledge was around my way. They involved in embellishment. So I'm supposed to call them God anyway?
If they greet you with peace, God, didn't Elijah Muhammad say, come with an equal or better greeting?
That's in the Quran, no question. But I'm saying, I'm going to call the dude next door who got a 9 to 5, don't smoke, don't drink, don't be his wife. I'm going to call him a Bill Power because he's a Christian. But I'm going to call the dude who wanted a heroin spot God because he knowledge 120? That don't make no sense.
Well, that's the religious part, though. You see, a lot of people assign and ascribe to themselves that they're part of a religious organization, and they feel that they'll judge others. So a lot of gods, they look at the universal flag as a religious symbol. You know, so it's like, okay, I'm a god, and I would go over there for 85. But when you're dealing with supreme mathematics, you're dealing with wisdom of man, ways, and actions. Man is justified through his wisdom, his ways, and actions. Then you can really make that distinction. So a lot of brothers still, when they wear the 7, you know, sun, moon, and crescent, that's it. That's all they need to do, and they God. You know, and some people will accept that. So it depends, God. I mean, but that's always been into the history. Like, none of that is new. You know what I mean? That's been there from day one. You know what I mean? That's been there from day one, and that's how the gods came into existence. It's just the truth. You know, the God, it's just the truth. Black Messiah, you know, this is the truth. You know, damn God, it's only God. God, you be hard-pressed to find a God who did it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of one God, you know, that did. But everybody did, you know? That's the reality. But the Father, from what I understand, that one God,
Wakeel,
all of this.
Why would somebody refer, can you give a knowledge to why somebody would refer to Father and Elijah as 10%?
Oh, God, because, I mean, you know, a resentment, look, God, compare and contrast always brings about jealousy and envy. You know what I mean? How they say familiarity breeds contempt. Some people are tired of being compared and contrasted to these great men. Master Prophet Muhammad and Honorable Elijah Muhammad. When you got a God complex, you understand, fuck them niggas. You know what I mean? That's the God complex. That's the nigga complex. You know, it's the Oedipus complex. It's like, some people are grateful, some are ingrateful. You know what I mean? But as it says also, is that with the Quran, somebody give you, the greeting, and somebody doesn't return the greeting, that's a problem. That's an issue. So Master Muhammad and Honorable Elijah Muhammad only did it good at. So if that good is repaid with evil, then you know that that person that repaid is good with evil has a problem. They're spiritually sick or whatever, or they're physically sick. There's something wrong. So I mean,